All right, so this video is designed to help those who are either in an IT leadership position or are going to be stepping into an IT leadership position with a company whose technology is really far behind, to the point where it could be holding them back from being as successful as they could be or that they want to be. And this is something I have personally dealt with, and I'm going to walk you through my situation so you can get an idea of where I'm coming from and why you might want to listen to me. So here's an example situation, which happens to be the exact situation I found myself in only 2 years ago. So when I came to work for the company I currently work for, they had around 200 users. So they have multiple locations. It's a retail chain. And the thing that stuck out to me almost immediately upon beginning my work there was that they were still using POP3 email standards. So this set off alarm bells in my head because I'm like, if you're using POP3, it was just like a symbol that this is going to be quite the project. So if you don't know, POP3 is an email fetching protocol in which all the email is pulled down from the server and it's stored locally on the device. And nearly everyone in the organization was set up this way. That meant that there were 200 inboxes, all that were storing email locally on the machine. So it wasn't also saved on the server, it wasn't backed up somewhere. People just had multiple 40 or 50 gig PST files from the last 10 to 15 years on their computers. It was pretty crazy. And to top it all off, every computer in the system, all 200 of them, had local Windows accounts, meaning that there was no central management whatsoever, no endpoint management, no 365, no on-site Active Directory domain services, nothing. They were setting up local Windows accounts and letting it go. If something crashed or if something got corrupted, they'd build a new local Windows account and go from there. Now, local Windows account, everyone hates signing in with a Microsoft account, but in a business that big, you need some sort of central management, right? So God forbid we needed to install software on every computer, we would have had to do it on every single machine individually. And some of these machines were pushing 10 years old or older. And it's not that I have a problem with keeping computers around for as long as they're going to work. I love that. I don't like e-waste. I don't like throwing things away just because they're off their lease contract. But some of these machines pushing 10 years or older were key components of business operations, like, an executive's desktop computer or, a point of sale register at a top performing store that, you're not even sure would reboot if the power went out, right? So that can get pretty scary. We also had degraded POTS phone systems throughout the stores. Now, most ISPs and cable companies have upgraded to digital on the back end, but we still had POTS systems internally in the store, so RJ11 cables running everywhere. And these had been put in when the stores were built, which was 1980s. So the wires were degrading, the phones were degrading, the handsets and everything. And you can't get parts for them anymore. No one will service them anymore. There's no documentation for why they're set up the way they are. So those were falling apart real quick. And speaking of documentation, we had a lot of custom processes that had been built by previous IT administrations that had not been documented clearly at all. So we had all these processes that I learned when I onboarded that I knew I had to do every day, but I had no idea how they worked, and I had no idea why we were doing them, which I told you, that scared the living crap out of me, to be doing something that is very important to the company, but if it breaks, you have no idea how to fix it. That gets pretty scary. And we also had no ticketing or problem tracking at all. No ticket system. If something went wrong from one of these users, you got a direct email into your inbox about that issue, and you had to solve it as if it was your first time every time. Well, just go view my other video on this channel about why you should have a ticketing system and why direct emails and direct communication is not a good idea. Let's just put it that way. And finally, we had no direction. There was no clear path set out for how the IT department could maintain a foundation and also push the company forward with the things they needed for success. So, how do you fix this? Well, The key component that goes throughout the rest of this video is patience. This is a serious time investment to fix something like this. And I say fix, the business was operating, but to get them into a modern standard is a serious time investment, a matter of years. This is not something you're going in and you're doing in 3 months. With the types of businesses that would be 10, 15 years behind the ball, they're not going to respond well to you coming in and blowing up their entire operation in 3 months. That's going to get you beat up in the parking lot. So you have to have patience, years of investment here. And you have to realize you're not going to be the IT hero. This is not going to be a flashy job. You're not going to be walking in, strutting your stuff, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, he saved us from, bankruptcy. That's not how it's going to go. And you have to be okay with not being everyone's friend. When you take processes and systems that are 10, 15 years old, that people have been doing for 10 or 15 years, and you change them, people are going to get a little upset. And that's okay. That's part of it. But have confidence in your ability. If you're in this IT leadership position, honestly, then you've got this. You know what you're doing. You just have to stay the course. And if you can do that, it will pay dividends for you professionally and for your career and for your confidence, as well as for the client. Win-win. So let's talk step one. What do you do? You're in this position. You've decided you want to embark on this journey. Well, the first thing is to learn, understand, and document. This should take a year. That's going to be a controversial statement. I'm saying this should take a year because it took me about a year. You have to spend time inside the broken processes and systems. You have to learn what they do and who depends on them. And you're not spending time inside these systems initially from the idea that you're going to replace them. You're spending time inside these broken processes to get a full understanding of how they work, why they work, what they do. You may find that maybe some of these processes aren't as broken as you initially thought. You're going to document every last detail, and you're going to try and complete the picture. You want to put together what all these little moving parts do that seem like a disaster when you look at them. But if you can get the connections down and you can start to understand what depends on what, that's going to make this a lot easier for you because you're not going to do something that has inadvertent effects on other processes. Once you've done that, you're going to begin researching and documenting possible alternatives to what they're doing now. And this isn't like you don't have to find the perfect answer right away. The key word here is possible alternatives. Document possible alternatives. Find 3 or 4 alternatives for each process that you're looking at. And then you're going to identify your 3-lock box. That's a little Sammy Hagar reference for you. But these are going to be the 3 key components of the business from the IT perspective. There's usually 3. What are the 3 main systems that keep this ship afloat? You've got to identify that because you need to know where are the touchy areas. Your 3 key components, if you break one of those, that's catastrophe. You need to know what those are. And then finally, do not act prematurely. If you don't know what those 3 key components are and you're not confident in that, and you act before you've planned out correctly, you could easily destroy one of those things and cause some major problems. Failure to plan is planning to fail, right? All right, so once you've learned, you've understood, and you've documented, now it's time to start small. We don't want to waste time here. We don't want to get caught up planning for years and years and years. So we're going to pick something that's low risk but high impact. No, it doesn't have to be something that's going to make the company $4 billion, right? When I say high impact, I mean high impact on either management or end users. And it must be a project that you can bring to completion in a reasonable amount of time. So a couple weeks maybe, right? And it must have noticeable benefits for leadership or end users. Because what you're doing here, you're not only picking something small to start improving the way the company works, but you're also kind of proving yourself to everyone, right? You're proving that you have the gumption to plan out a process from the beginning. You can execute that process, and you can support users through that process. So to do that, you're going to have to create a project scope with a timeline, deliverables, and a communication plan, very important. And you're going to take this incredibly seriously because this is going to impact the success of your future projects. If you act like it's a small project and it's not that important, then you're not going to build the confidence and the reputation you need to go for a bigger project. Key component here, document everything along the way. All the successes, all the failures, what you could do better next time, what went really good. All right, up next, step 3, organize and prioritize. So now that you've created a plan for your first small project and you've executed it and everything's wrapped up and things went well, hopefully, now it's time to take a look at all those other things that you identified up here in step 1. Document every last detail and try to complete the picture. Now you're going to organize those into a list and prioritize them based on what needs improvement and what will have the biggest impact. You're going to create that list, and then you're going to refine the list over and over and over again. Can any items on this list be combined? Can do any of the items have to supersede other items? Maybe you have to do something, item A first, or item B can't get done. So you're going to identify that order of operations. And you're also going to identify which improvements will have the biggest impact. So you can kind of work your way towards that. There's a lot of give and take in IT. And you want to make sure that the impact is felt. And then finally, you have to consider your environment. What kind of people are you working for? What kind of people are in the office? Who are your coworkers? How will these people react to what you're about to do? You do have to take that into consideration. Now, it shouldn't stop you from doing the right thing or what is necessary for growth, but it should impact the way you go about it. If you have a lot of skittish coworkers who will freak out anytime something small doesn't work exactly the way it did before because they're so used to these processes, you got to take that into consideration. So you've organized and prioritized. Now all that's left to do is to attack. So you're going to take what you learned in step 2. We'll go visit that one again. That starts small, but you're just going to pick a slightly bigger project off of the list you created. So you'll pick another project. Take what you learned in step 2, because you documented all the things that went good and bad, and you're going to apply it to each project moving forward. And you're still going to document absolutely everything along the way. And then you're going to reorganize and prioritize that list after every project you do. This is over a period of probably years here. And you're going to be prepared for the fallout. Not everything will go smoothly. It just won't. It's not in the nature of IT for everything to work. Otherwise, we wouldn't have jobs. So be prepared for someone coming into your office and yelling at you. Some people being pretty upset with you. Some people losing their minds after you update a piece of software. Or the frustration coming from management when a brand new piece of software doesn't do a specific thing. That's always the classic thing I see, is that people are really good at finding the one thing that new piece of software can't do, right? And approach it with mercy and grace. It's really the only way to get through this. If you approach it from the perspective that everyone else is the problem and that you're the one who's trying to solve all the problems, it's not going to go well for you. You're not going to be looked upon favorably. That's my blueprint for modernizing a business. It's not that complicated. It really comes down to just the key component here, which is patience. You need patience and you need staying power. It's not something you're going to do in 3 months, right? But I'm confident that if you're watching this video, I'm confident you can do it. You've already decided to dedicate a little time to make sure you know how to do it, right? You're looking at this video. You watched this video on the off chance that I could provide some information that maybe you didn't already know. So you're already ahead of the game. And if you've got any questions or comments, put them down below. If you have experience in doing this and you want to share some of your tips and tricks, throw them down below too, so this video is a continued resource. And if you want to get in touch with me, my email address is below. God bless.